The Nine Realms, what are they? Planets, galaxies, solar systems? Well, today we'll be taking a closer look at the Nine Realms under the rule of Asgard from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, before we begin, the Nine Realms we are discussing today are the heavenly bodies within the MCU. And for the purposes of this video, we will not be discussing any aspects from the main continuity comic books. As with our other lore videos, it's important to make this distinction because the MCU is not the prime Marvel universe that comic readers know. With that said, let's answer the question we posed earlier right away. The Nine Realms are an association of 9 planetary bodies which are each under the quote-unquote jurisdiction of Asgard, some of them involuntarily. These 9 locations are Asgard, Midgard, Alfheim, Muspelheim, Jotunheim, Nidavellir, Nilfheim, Svartalfheim, and Vanaheim. Each of these bodies are connected by the Yggdrasil. The Yggdrasil is what the Asgardians call the World Tree. The limbs of this tree form cosmic pathways that connect the 9 realms, and while it may look like the 9 realms on the Yggdrasil are each a galaxy in Thor the Dark World, we know through various guidebooks and multiple statements throughout the films that this is not the case. Also, Asgard is really tiny with a minuscule population, so there's almost no way they'd be able to police 9 galaxies even with the Bifrost. So prior to Odin's rule, the 9 realms acted each independently, trying their best to destroy the others and become the rulers of these 9 realms. It was during the time of chaos that Malekith of Svartalfheim attempted to drown the 9 realms in darkness, so the Dark Elves could once again thrive within the universe, not being bound to Svartalfheim alone. The Dark Elves had been around long before any other beings in the universe. Before light existed, the Dark Elves were thriving and peaceful in a universe cloaked in shadow. Eventually, the universe went through a dramatic change when light came into being. This change was harmful to the Dark Elves. Light, air, and the matter that is essential for most life is poisonous to the Dark Elves. So outside of Svartalfheim, they must wear protective suits to prevent further corrosion. Svartalfheim and the rest of the 9 realms eventually came to be united by Odin and Hela during their war campaign. The duo forcibly subjugated each one of the 9 realms under Odin's violent banner. It was during this time that Odin battled the fire demon Surtur, the ruler of Muspelheim. Surtur was defeated by the Allfather, who stole the demon's eternal flame and locked it away in his vault, leaving a broken Surtur and his minions on Muspelheim for thousands of years, waiting for the day that they could enact their revenge. Thor claims that Surtur was defeated like 500,000 years ago, but we know this was just an exaggeration for comedic effect because Asgardians live roughly 5,000 years. So Surtur sat and waited, ruling over the volcanic realm of Muspelheim until his crown was stolen by Thor, and then he eventually fulfilled the prophecy of Ragnarok and destroyed Asgard as well as himself. Not much else really happened on Muspelheim as far as we can tell. Surtur just sat on his throne, stewing for thousands of years, talking to other smaller fire demons, eating his fill of lava bug larvae, or, maybe he took a ride on a jet-propelled fire dragon, who knows. After defeating Surtur and conquering all 9 realms, Odin realized, hey, maybe this war thing is pretty bad, and ceased the expansion of Asgard's empire. This act of peace angered his daughter Hela, who eventually rebelled, wanting to expand Asgard's empire even further. So Odin was forced to banish Hela to Hell, which according to the Marvel Studios Visual Dictionary is a specific region located in Nilfheim. Hell houses the souls of the dead who are neither honored nor dishonored, as the honored dead will end up in Valhalla, and the dishonored dead end up in another region of Nilfheim. Hell is a cold, gloomy landscape filled with jagged rocks and an ethereal fog clouding the entire area. Hela eventually attempted to escape Hell, and Odin dispatched the Valkyries, Asgard's greatest warriors, to thwart her. However, they were unsuccessful, and Odin was forced to reseal Hela once again. After sealing Hela away, Odin continued to rule over the 9 realms, which were peaceful for the most part. The Dark Elves were waiting for the convergence, Surtur was lacking his eternal flame, and Hela was of course imprisoned. but the frost giants were not satisfied with this so-called peace, so they revolted by attacking Midgard with the Casket of Ancient Winters, which is the source of their power. Not long after, Odin arrived with an army of Asgardians to combat the king of the frost giants Laufey and his army, and then war broke out. Eventually, there was a battle on Jotunheim to determine the outcome of the war, and despite losing an eye during the battle, Odin and Asgard were victorious, and after having the Casket of Winters taken from him, Laufey begrudgingly agreed to a peace treaty with Asgard, which lasted for roughly 1,500 years. Laufey and the frost giants come from the Arctic planet of Jotunheim, which persists in a perpetual winter night. This chilling wasteland is home to not only the frost giants, but ice wargs and massive frost beasts. But without the Casket of Ancient Winters, the planet began to break apart and decay. Eventually, Loki strikes a deal with the king Laufey after the banishment of Thor, allowing the frost giants to invade to kill Odin. However, Loki double-crosses the frost giant leader and kills him. He then unleashes the full power of the Bifrost in an attempt to destroy Jotunheim, but is thwarted by Thor, who destroys the Bifrost. After the Bifrost destruction, the Nine Realms immediately started acting up. Marauders known as the Scourge of the Nine Realms began ruthlessly raiding settlements on Vanaheim, eventually conquering the realm for themselves. 3 years after the destruction of the Bifrost, Thor, Hogun, Scourge, Sif, and others arrived to put the Marauders down, freeing Vanaheim. Not much is known about Vanaheim, but what we see of it, it seems very similar to Midgard and Asgard. It is covered in dense forests and is inhabited by the Vanir, a race that, much like the Asgardians, has enhanced abilities and lifespans, although they all seem to live in small villages as opposed to large cities like on Midgard and Asgard. Asgard is the home of Thor and the legendary Asgardians. Feared and respected throughout the galaxy, the Asgardians keep the peace throughout the Nine Realms. Asgard is a very unusual planet as it is a disk with two sides. The entire plane has a breathable atmosphere, gravity, and cyclical days and nights. The top side is a beautiful, heavenly domain, but the underside is a desolate, mountainous, and icy area that is very rarely visited by topsiders. The capital city of Asgard is really its only inhabited location. At the center of the city is the palace where the Asgardian royalty lives and works. From there, the city stretches out across the plain. Outside of the city is Asgard's mountainous countryside, which is covered in lush forests that are carved with various streams and rivers that lead to the ocean in front of the capital city. The bountiful land of Asgard is in a state of perpetual springtime where blossom and harvest constantly coincide. Asgard is not just a symbol of power, but it's also a source of it as well. Hela, Odin's daughter's power derives from Asgard itself, and while on Asgard, her power grows to unimaginable levels. Although during the events of Ragnarok, Asgard is destroyed by Muspelheim's fire demon king Surtur, preventing Hela from expanding the Asgardian empire beyond the Nine Realms. Midgard is, of course, Earth, a planet ruled by dozens of various leaders who oversee their own countries. While many impactful events occur on Earth within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, including the defeat of the Mad Titan Thanos, the other realms rarely engage or interact with the planet. However, Asgardians would occasionally visit Midgard throughout the years, and the people of Midgard mistook these aliens for gods, and the Norse mythology was born. After the destruction of Asgard, Midgard is chosen to be the location of New Asgard, where the remaining Asgardians live and work disguised as a human civilization. Midgard itself has been targeted by multiple different invasions and attacks from foreign entities that Asgard has had to stop, including the Dark Elves' plan to cover the Earth and the rest of the universe in darkness via the Convergence, and the Frost Giant invasion. After the Chitauri invasion, Thor took it upon himself to defend Midgard personally, and joined a group of heroes from Earth known as the Avengers. Thor would then regularly assist Earth, including during the Second Convergence, the Ultron incident, and both of Thanos' invasions. And speaking of Thanos' genocidal quest throughout the universe, he did eventually visit one of the 9 realms that wasn't Earth. He visited Nidavellir, home of the dwarves. Nidavellir is a neutron star, unlike the rest of the realms, which are planets, and is orbited by an Alderson disk, where the dwarves of this realm served Asgard as its blacksmiths, and are responsible for many legendary weapons such as Mjolnir, Stormbreaker, Gungnir, the Infinity Gauntlet, Ymir's axe, and Thanos' helicopter blade. After the destruction of the Bifrost Bridge, but before the Chitauri invasion, Nidavellir was invaded by Ymir, an Asgardian who planned to overthrow Odin. He had taken the dwarves hostage, barricaded himself inside the Golden Forge, and forced the dwarves to forge him an axe that could cut through reality itself. However, Thor was able to defeat Ymir and thank the dwarves for constructing Mjolnir. Sometime after the second convergence, Thanos arrived on Nidavellir and forced Eitri to forge something to house the Infinity Stones, slaughtered the rest of the dwarves, and encased Eitri's hands in molten uru so he could not forge any other weapons. Thor eventually arrived, and Eitri blamed him for not protecting the dwarves, as was the duty of Asgard. The reason that Thanos was able to invade Nidavellir at that time was because Odin was put under a spell by Loki and forced to live on Earth for some time. So Loki was impersonating the All-Father and ruling over the 9 realms very, very poorly. As Thor states in Thor Ragnarok, the 9 realms were in complete disarray. But even if Loki had sent a squadron out there to try and stop Thanos, we all know that probably wouldn't have worked out. An interesting point to note is that not all the dwarves on Nidavellir are actually giant dwarves like Eitri. In the one-shot comic that I explained earlier involving Ymir invading Nidavellir, it's shown that the dwarves are actually dwarf size. They're about half the size of Thor. So it's not known at this point if that's something that was retconned, because the comic came out so much earlier than Infinity War did, but it's still interesting nonetheless. The final of the 9 realms is Alfheim, which is the most mysterious of the 9 realms as it has never been visited on screen, although when Thor arrived on Midgard for the first time, he did mistake it for Alfheim, so we can assume that it is very similar to Midgard. All we know of the realm is that it's part of the 9 under Asgard's rule, and it is the home of the Light Elves, the antithesis to the Dark Elves. And that's it for the 9 realms. There are other planets under the protection of Asgard, such as Nilfheim and Rhea, which had to be saved from the same marauders that invaded Vanaheim, but for whatever reason, these aren't considered part of the 9 realms, and that may be because they're not part of the convergence, and the convergence is something that happens every 5,000 years, where all 9 realms will align on the Yggdrasil tree, and Malekith, of course, used the convergence to try and cloak the universe in darkness. And that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate it. And if you like the video, be sure to like and subscribe. It does really, really help us out. Also, be sure to follow us on all the social media that you see on screen right now, especially on Twitter. All of that will be pinned down below. And let me know which one of the 9 realms is your favorite, other than Midgard. I mean, you live here, right? So leave a comment down below and let me know which one of the other 8 you like the best. Remember the motto, everyone. It's the 9 realms over everything, and I'll see you guys next time.